A gentleman with the name of Zacharias asks me, if you had all the money you needed, what would you do with photography? And that's a very interesting question. I would focus my efforts on photography that matters. I would help those who can tell their stories. I would help them to tell the stories, and I would tell stories that I find important too. So my way of working would be very similar to how I shoot today, only with the luxury of not having to worry about time and money. I could go more in depth. I would do more things that I find important. For example, last year I did a vlog about a little project I did with my girlfriend when we went to a refugee center and shot portraits of these people. I think that was the most important thing that I did that whole year. Making those people happy with something as mundane as a simple print of their family picture, but also having the chance to share this experience with my YouTube followers in a video. I think is a very important thing to do. I'm lucky to be born in a safe country. I'm lucky to be born into a good family. I'm lucky to be able to tell stories. So yeah, I see it as my responsibility to use my skills and the chances that I got to give better chances to other people too. There's also these personal things that I've been discovering in the last couple of years. I want to leave this world a tiny bit better than I found it, but I believe we have to make changes. I won't bore you with all those details, but there's things about housing, living, transport that we need to address if we want to keep this world a good place to live for our children and grandchildren. So that would be the kind of things that I would focus on a lot more. I think it is actually a very good question. I'd be happy to take a grant from a rich person to let me do whatever I want, but the truth is it's probably not going to happen. But still, it makes me think about how I want to spend my personal projects, how I want to incorporate things that matter to me into my work, even though I am very busy to make a living and taking care of my kids. But yeah, thanks Zach, very interesting question. I'm also very curious to hear your answers, so please put them in the comments. It would be very interesting to read. So Bill asks me, you work more with natural light these days than strobe. Is that part of your documentary path? The reason why I use it less now has to do with technical evolutions. The cameras these days can go a lot higher in the ISO range than they used to. My first camera was a digital Rebel or a 300D Canon, which was decent up until 400, maybe 800 ISO. So there's several stops of usable light extra these days with what cameras can do. There's also an evolution in my own knowledge about natural light. I think these days I'm more experienced than I was back then, so it's easier to find natural light than it was back then. But the main thing is that because I became known to be the guy with the flashes, I evolved into a photographer's photographer without really realizing it. But at a certain point I realized, like, hey, I'm making pictures for photographers, because photographers know how hard it is to work with several lights on location, and for a while that made me very happy because I got the wows from the photography community while I was actually still starting out. But at a certain point I realized, like, I don't want to be a photographer. I still want photographers to like my work, but most of the people who are going to see my work are not photographers, and they don't care. And I also found out that gear often gets in the way of the story. It can ruin the moment, it can distract people. So when I can do it without strobes and still get more than acceptable technical quality, then I would probably do it without. But it's still an amazing tool to be able to use, and still until today it's so easy to quickly set up a speed light and light something, or set up a whole studio, or set up 5 lights, whatever. I don't really have to think about it because I invested so much time in learning how to do it, and so for me it's become a tool just like any other photographic tool to tell stories. And sometimes it helps me to tell the story and then I use it, but if it gets in the way, it goes back into my bag. Bart asks where to find some models on TFP basis in Belgium for starting photographers. TFP means time for prints. There's also TFCD, which is time for CD. What it basically means is that a model poses for you in return for the pictures. No money changes hands. And it's probably one of the best ways to work if you want to work with models. Now, it can be a bit challenging to work with models, or to find models in the first place. Now, there's websites like Model Mayhem, where a lot of models and photographers can find a connection. There are Facebook groups. There's some local Facebook groups in Belgium, but I'm sure they're anywhere in the world. You have these groups where they bring photographers, models, makeup artists, stylists together for free shoots. But there's also, you can use the girl next door, a friend's wife, or whatever. There's so many people that have the potential to be in front of the camera. You can also get models through other connections, through other photographers. Now, the big challenge when you get started here is that there are a lot of creepy photographers and there are a lot of crappy models. There's guys, more than one out there, who do photography because it's their only chance to get close to a half-naked pretty girl. And there are a lot of empty-headed young girls who think that they are going to be the new Naomi Campbell, and they should ask for a lot of money to pose for a picture without having to, you know, putting their energy into a shoot. So yeah, Bart, it is a challenge. There's also a bit of a hierarchy. The hardest part is to get started. So a good way to get the first models is to go to those websites or Facebook groups and target the starting out models, because as a starting out photographer, it's going to be an easier match to get the starting out model, because the more experienced models, they get access to the more experienced photographers. So start at the bottom and work your way up. Make sure that you share some good work with the beginning models, and that will give you more access. People will, you know, word will get around that you are a photographer that can be trusted, that works hard and follows up on his promises, is not annoying, is not trying to get into bed with any of the girls. So yeah, build it up step by step. I would also advise to just think about friends and friends of friends who might be up there for a model, and it may not yield your best work, but you still practice your photography. You might get some pictures that you can show in order to get you the better models. Another option would be to pay for a good amateur model, which can be a way to get started. I'm a bit against paying for models because I want people who are motivated, who want to create something just like me, so we can get results. We can both get results for our portfolio, but it is of course easier once you get a bit of a name. So it is not easy to get started, but the most important thing is to get started. And even if it's just a friend's girlfriend you shoot and the results may not be portfolio worthy, well, at least you learn something and then you go on from there. So just start shooting people, start sharing your work, build the network, and the models will sooner or later come. Bart, one last thing, Bart, something that has worked for me is ideas, good ideas. Even when I started out, I wanted to work with some of the more experienced models, some of the better models, and even though by the reigning hierarchy, how do you say that? That's such a difficult word. They were above my level, and normally you don't get easy access unless you pay them for their services. But what helped me a lot is when I approached good models, but models that are interested in the creative part and to create something together, is to approach them with a good idea, with a good plan. Say, you know, just send them an email like, hey, my name is Bert, I'm starting out as a model photographer with a little bit of experience, and I got this idea that I think you would be perfect for. Shortly, briefly explain your idea, and if it's a good idea, people might be intrigued enough to go for it. So you'll have to take some no's, but you just keep on trying and it will come. Good luck. Looking forward to see your model pictures, Bart. Last question from Glenn, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce your last name. I'm debating picking up a Fuji 23mm f2 lens, but I can see a need for the X100F as well. The interchangeable lens is sharper wide open, sharper all throughout, I guess, and it's also faster focusing than the lens in the X100 series camera. But on the other hand, there's some advantages of going for the X100 series. It comes with its own camera, which is very handy. It has the leaf shutter, it's completely silent, so it is hard to compare. I'd say if you are purely going for image quality, then and you already have an X series interchangeable lens body, then go for the interchangeable lens. It's not that expensive and it's a really good lens. On the other hand, if you want to go for the portability, for having a backup camera, then the X100F might be an option. Talking about the X100F, I have a pre-production sample that I can play with for some time. So I'm going to review it in the next video. See you next time.